51-year-old man has been taken in for questioning in connection with the fire at Parliament. The blaze gutted the third floor of the old Assembly building. The roof of the structure has collapsed. The City of Cape Town's fire services says the ceiling inside the National Assembly has also collapsed, but the roof of that building is still intact. Now we speak to Brigadier Nomthandazo Mbambo, who is the national spokesperson for the Hawks. Brigadier, thank you so much for making the time. Take us through the arrest of the suspect and what we know about him now.
Good morning, Desiree, and thank you for having me. Yes, indeed, a 49-year-old man was arrested after he was taken in for questioning yesterday. This was after he was found at the scene shortly after the fire started by the Protection Security Services. He was also found to be in possession of items that were believed to be belonging to Parliament, suspected to have been stolen in Parliament. After he was arrested, the matter was handed over to the Hawks that is dealing with crimes against the state. That is where now he was charged with housebreaking and theft, arson, as well as also under the National Key Point Act. And he is due to appear in court, Cape Town Magistrate Court, tomorrow morning.
Where was he arrested?
He was arrested in Parliament. Shortly after the fire started, he was seen by one of the SABC Protection Security Services in the building.
Brigadier, do we know how he gained entrance to the building? Because this is one of the big questions about the access to Parliament and how strict it should be.
Preliminary investigation indicates that he allegedly gained entrance through the back window in one of the offices in the building. But we are also investigating that particular fact as to how did he actually manage to evade security and gain entry into Parliament.
Just how compromised are national key points if someone could just, walk, as you say, get in through a window without being noticed?
Indeed, national key points are meant to be secured, and we believe they are also well secured. Hence, we are now investigating as to how this particular person that doesn't have any links to Parliament managed to gain entry, easy access into Parliament. How did he manage to evade the security that is there?
Again, national key points are a SABC competency. Where was security?
Security was there in the building, as we indicate now that the person was arrested by one of the members of the Protection and Security Services in the building. But we're not sure at that stage, as and when the person gained entry, where were they? That will be subject to investigation.
Is there any sense at this stage that the suspect was working alone, or if it was a group and if this was planned?
At this stage, an indication is that he was working alone, but investigation as it continues will not rule out the possibility of other people being involved. But for now, we are only investigating him. Besides
this one investigation that you say, this one suspect that you say is the only one you're looking at, has SAPS uncovered anything else that we haven't found out about so far?
Not at this stage. You will understand, Desiree, that investigation is still at its infancy. So we haven't discovered much. We are still investigating. And as you are all aware, we haven't even been able to gain access into the building as yet because it has not yet been declared as safe. So as soon as everything has been opened and access allowed for the investigators, we will then conduct an extensive investigation into the matter.
Brigadier Mbambo, just in terms of the suspect, in terms of their background checks, what have we uncovered? Are they a parliamentary employee? Is it an outsider? Do we know anything in this regard?
What we have uncovered at this stage is that the person is just an ordinary citizen that doesn't have any links to Parliament. But as we indicated, as and when investigation continues, we are not sure what we'll uncover, but that is what we have at this stage.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
As you just heard there, a story we will be following, a 49-year-old suspect arrested and charged with housebreaking, theft and arson, and will also be charged under the National Key Point Act in relation to that fire that gutted the Parliament building in Cape Town. Let's bring in now Marina Griebnow, a retired procedural advisor and organizer of parliamentary tours. A very good morning, and thanks for making the time to speak to us this morning.
Thank you very much. And can I just point out that the organizer of the parliamentary tours was until shortly after 94. And then I retired from that.
Quite a while back, quite a while.
Because we got professional tour guides.
Marina, what were your thoughts as you started to see reports about that fire that gutted the Parliament building?
I must tell you, I was devastated. I was in tears on several occasions yesterday. I suppose I mustn't be such a crybaby, but 30 years of my life went into that place, and I so love that building, and I love the, through the parliamentary tours, we got to know the artworks and the artifacts in the building, so I was absolutely glued to every single report I could find yesterday just to find out exactly where is what and what. We still don't know, exactly what has been saved, but we have certain ideas about things that might still be okay.
So access to Parliament is a highly regulated process. You worked in the building. While you were there, were there areas of security that you felt fell short of what is required in securing a national key point?
I'm not an expert on the security of the building, but I mean, we were always, there was even a time in the late 80s when even our cars were sort of, no, I'm talking nonsense. It was quite regular for us in our parking. When you go in, they would search your car underneath. You had to show your permit to get into the building, and access to the building was also just by putting your permit against a scanner so that it could verify the information, and that's how you got in. I suppose, like in any place, there are places where there are areas of vulnerability, but one would not expect that of Parliament. And I must say, with the first thought I had was that the fire had started because of maybe an electrical fault, as the one as it was reported about the one that was in March last year. But according to reports, it started on the third floor of the old Assembly building. The building is in three parts for people who don't know. The oldest part is where the NCOP is, which is the oldest chamber that's still in use, and I'm happy to hear, I think, that that chamber is okay, and the Library of Parliament, because that's crucial. I mean, there are so many valuable books and documents, and we have the largest Africana collection, in other words, books from the 18th and 19th century, and paintings and things that are absolutely irreplaceable in the library. But obviously the security there, particularly for fire, is huge, and we've always been aware of that, But the middle part, and then there's the middle part of the building. The oldest part was finished in 1885 for the Cape Parliament. And then when the Union Parliament came in 1910, where the four provinces joined, or the other three provinces joined the Cape Parliament, and we became the Union Parliament, they needed more space. The chamber was too small. So they added the part where the old Assembly building is now, and obviously some more office space as well. And then in 1985, for the tricameral system, they built the newest part of the building where the National Assembly wing is. And that's where I spent most of my time in Parliament, at the table, just the people who sit in front of the speaker. I was a procedural advisor, so you would have seen us behind whoever was speaking at that particular point.
Yeah.
Yes, so you don't expect breaches of the security in Parliament. It's taken very seriously usually, and on the few occasions where it happened, it was usually on the gallery of the National Assembly, where we had a few incidents that I can recall.
So you were talking about artifacts. What are some of those irreplaceable ones housed in the Parliament building? And perhaps you could give us a little bit of a backstory behind them.
Okay. One of the ones that I was really concerned about, I think you mentioned it earlier, is the Case Kama tapestry. Now, that is an exquisite, singular and unique piece of embroidery work, which is 120 meters long. And it was done by the woman in the Eastern Cape, by 100 women in the Eastern Cape, and it depicts the history of that area. And it's absolutely beautiful. For those who haven't seen it yet, make a special visit to Parliament when we can do that again, and go and we're all worried because it was given to Parliament and it was situated in cases along the old assembly walls, which is actually quite symbolic, because if you think about this alternative history that is portrayed in the tapestries compared to what happened in the old assembly chamber, where most of the apartheid acts were enacted or were passed, and before it got signed off as acts of Parliament. So that was my main concern. I must say that they posted a video yesterday, Mr. J.P. Smith of the Cape Town Mayoral Committee. He posted a video where they were walking along the side of the old assembly and passing to go behind the chamber. And as they passed, going around the corner, I saw a bit of the tapestry and it looks intact. So I'm holding thumbs and praying and saying, please let it be saved. But because it's next to the old assembly, there are lots of historical things as well, things that relate to the colonial history of Parliament. But all in all, it makes up the picture of what Parliament, is, and the work it has done, the people who visited it. I wasn't really worried about the maces of Parliament, except when I started thinking that they are at the entrance to the foyer, in front of the old assembly. They have some replicas of the maces. The maces are made of there's gold in it, lots of gold. It's the black rod of the National Council of Provinces and the mace of the National Assembly. They are the old ones are in that glass case, and so are replicas of the new symbols. So the symbols of Parliament are very important to Parliament, obviously, because that's our identity and that's who we are as the one arm of state. But we're also talking, as far as old stuff is concerned, big pictures of the royals that were in the Parliamentary Museum. We don't know whether the museum is still there. We also have the speakers' chairs right from the first one of the Cape Parliament, which is a tiny, very simple and plain chair. And those of you who watch Parliament will know that those chairs have graduated and become bigger and bigger. And then we've got a huge one in the National Assembly, but they say that the damage in the National Assembly is quite extensive. So I'm not holding out a lot of hope.
And just
there's so many. Sorry.
Just to end off our conversation, I want to ask you: the economic freedom fighters are stating that they're quite pleased with this Parliament because it will just put momentum on the conversation about moving Parliament from Cape Town to Pretoria. What are your thoughts on this? Obviously the first time that was mentioned, I was very emotional. I was much younger at that point, and I sort of thought, no, that can't happen. Parliament is this, Cape Town is the seat of Parliament, we're the mother city and all those kinds of things. I still feel like that a little bit, but I've heard that conversation and that argument so many times over the years. I mean, even when they built Parliament in Cape Town for the first time, there was lots of controversy. And I mean, as the new Parliament came in, the Democratic Parliament in 1994, we've had this argument on several occasions. So I'm not holding my breath. So, but I do suspect that the damage to the building is considerable. Well, Marina, thank you so much.
I just want to say, I hope they can fix it. I hope they can restore it.
Okay, Marina Griebnow, thank you so much for making the time to speak to us. Marina is a former parliamentary procedure advisor. Thank you so much for making the time to speak to us. Let's take a break. You're watching The Agenda.